You're listening to the Business Mike podcast. Amazing interviews with entrepreneurs and industry thought leaders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Mike podcast. And today I have a very special guest named Marcelo. Marcelo, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers and tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you for having me. I'm the author of the PRFAQ framework, a framework invented by Amazon to discuss strategy and vision. I also been a tech and product leader for the last 25 years.
Marcelo, the reason why we're here today is to discuss the PRFAQ framework. Now, I've had the privilege of engaging with you prior to this recording and getting a better understanding of it. But for our listeners and viewers who have never heard of this and are curious about what value it might be to them, can you just explain to us what the PRFAQ framework stands for and what it does?
Sure. PRFAQ stands for Press Release and Frequently Asked Questions, and is a product and business strategy framework. It's not a marketing tool, despite the fact that it has a press release in it. And the idea is you write a vision for a product or for a business even before you start working on it. And then you work backwards to define the strategy to satisfy that vision. And then you decide if you want to go build it or not. So the big value of the PRFAQ is really to think about an opportunity and to identify if it is worth pursuing it or not, by asking yourself very important questions that you should know before you start any new project. It could be a podcast, it could be a new tech product, it could be a change to a customer experience or anything like that, right? So there are certain things you need to know before you jump ahead so you can save time later. So it's a framework that really helps you execute faster and have clarity on the direction that you're going.
Okay, now, Are you in position to basically give us an example of this PRFAQ framework in action? Maybe you've implemented it before, just so that our listeners and viewers have a clear understanding of how exactly they can implement it.
So PRFAQ was invented by Amazon over 20 years ago to make product and strategy decisions. And every single product at Amazon, every single business at Amazon, every customer program they created has been backed by a PRFAQ. What that means is there was a person within Amazon who wrote this document, which is 6 pages long, by the way. And then they went around with their team, with their executives and to other people to gather more information to make a decision if Amazon should pursue that idea or not. So at any given time, Amazon is writing thousands of PRFAQs every week. Of course, Amazon is a very big organization, so they have the capacity to do that. And that's one example where PRFAQ has been used very often. I'll give you another example, which is personal. Like, I have used the PRFAQ to decide if I should write a book about PRFAQs. Right. So the idea is you imagine a book as a product and there are customers of this product and they have a problem they are trying to address. So you write this PRFAQ document to think more clearly about like who's your customer, what problem you're trying to do, how you solve that problem for them. And the problem that I try to address with my book was people that have difficulty coming up with good strategies or have clarity on the vision of what they're doing.
All right. So the PRFAQ framework, for me as a layperson and now speaking on behalf of my audience members, seems like a framework that I can put in place. Say if I have a product or service and I'm trying to innovate. So it's a way of projecting myself in the future and then working backwards to see whether or not these ideas are applicable, whether they are worth pursuing or not. And I just want to dig just a little bit further in terms of, you mentioned that it can also help you determine whether or not to pursue something. So as you're working backwards with this framework, are you able to unpack it and share with us at what point you know that, okay, this is now not viable? How does the framework unravel to the point where you feel that this isn't worth pursuing?
What I describe is there are three outcomes to the PRFAQ method, like what happens at the end. One is you write the PRFAQ and you have conviction that this is really a good idea and you should pursue it. So you go and you execute your plan to pursue that idea. The other two is that you decide not to pursue. But one of those is because in the process of writing your PRFAQ and discovering about your customer and their problem, you realize the problem wasn't as big for them. Customer were not interested. There was lots of solutions out there. For some reason, like you couldn't build the conviction to pursue that idea. The other option that happens, the third one, is when you realize it is a good business, it really is a good opportunity, but you have other ideas, like you have things that you feel like are more valuable to pursue. So that's an example of like use the PRFAQ, but like has been successful in creating the PRFAQ and understanding the customer, but it's still like you don't feel like that's the best use of the time or resources that you have.
All right. So, Marcelo, you've written a book about this framework. And of course, I'm going to share the links to that book where people can learn more about the PRFAQ framework. In that book, what can people expect to learn? Are there step-by-step guidelines on how to use this framework? Does someone need prior experience in product design? What are the requirements for application of this framework? And how widely can it be applied? Because I know that there are people watching this thinking, maybe this applies only to people that make products and not necessarily an environment where we deliver services.
Yeah, you're right. Is the PRFAQ is for any kind of innovation. It could be a product, it could be a hardware, it could be a service, it could be a program that you're creating, or even internal things in an organization like a process or a policy, and you're trying to innovate. And innovate really means two different things. One is like you're creating something new that didn't exist, or you're changing something that already exists. Both are valid types of innovation. And the book is really a guide to help you understand what this framework is, how to create one, how to use it, and how to make decisions based on that framework.
Right. And is there a timeline, ideally, in terms of how long this PRFAQ framework lasts? Is this an activity that takes months, a day, or it depends on a case-by-case basis?
It depends on a case-by-case basis, but usually it's between 1 and 2 weeks. For most projects that you're going to be working on, you need 1 or 2 weeks to work on the PRFAQ. And then once you decide if you're going to continue, then you can do the planning and everything else that you're going to do for your project or initiative.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Marcelo, for explaining that in detail. Now, I know that there are some customer experience professionals who are listening and watching this who are not yet visualizing how this can apply to them. Yes. So I don't know if you can create a fictional example, particularly for my audience, majority of whom are customer experience professionals, where we can show how, in practice, how this PRFAQ might help them. So I don't know if you have a scenario in mind that can be applied in a service-based situation.
Yeah, I think better than a scenario, I think it's valuable to explain that the PRFAQ is really a vision and strategy document, right? What that means is you're not talking about the details of a project. You're talking if you should be doing something, if customers are going to find it valuable, even before you commit to deciding the features or the customer experience or the wireframes or whatever you're doing, right? Whatever service or product you're building, like you need to know, like, is this a vision worth executing? And a vision shouldn't be something that is full of details, right? Like you want to paint a picture of the future that is aspirational. Not a detailed diagram of everything that you're going to do or a roadmap or like the full list of features. So that's how you use the PRFAQ. So in the context of customer experience or user experience or even engineering or product management, or design anything like that, you really, before you start doing the core of your work, you want the entire team to be aligned on the value for the customer and the value for the business. What that means is, if we do this, is this going to be good for us and good for the customer? Like, that's what you're trying to put in the PRFAQ, is the outcome that you're trying to achieve, not how you're going to achieve it, not the details of how you're going to achieve it.
Okay, that makes sense. But it also brings up another question in my mind, which is, depending on the scale of your organization, is this a framework that is to be utilized by more than one department when arriving at a scenario, or can a department utilize it on their own? Basically, do you need input from dependent, collaborators, or can you utilize it on your own without necessarily involving dependencies?
It's best if you include every other function and other teams in the organization, right? It doesn't have to be everyone. But what you don't want to do is do something in isolation. So you want to get the input and collaborate with folks in all other parts of the organization, from engineering, product, legal, marketing, sales, customer experience. Like, everyone gets involved, providing their feedback, so that the idea that you're capturing on this document is a better idea than the one that you started with, right? So it evolves into something better. And then when it comes time to execute, when you make a decision that, like, yes, we're going to do that, everyone is on board already, because everyone participating in the development of that idea.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Marcelo, I can't thank you enough. I believe you have explained the PRFAQ framework in detail, at least enough detail for us to appreciate how this can apply to our organizations and help us come up with innovative products. It's very encouraging to know that this is what Amazon actually uses whenever they come up with new products. So it is definitely a tried and tested framework that can benefit each and every one of us. And I thank you so much for spreading the word about this framework. But before we end the interview, maybe you can just share with us how people who want to learn more about this, I'm sure our podcast cannot cover everything in detail. Mm-hmm. That's most likely covered in the book. So for those who are interested in engaging with yourself, getting the book, reading it and learning more, how do we get our hands on this book to learn more about the PRFAQ framework?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to the book website, is www.theprfaq.com, or you go to Google and search for PRFAQ book. It's going to be the number one result there. And from there, you can see examples, download templates, read the articles that I wrote about it, and even buy the book.
All right. And you are on LinkedIn for those who find it easier to connect on LinkedIn?
Yes, you can find all my contact information is on the book website as well.
All right. Well, Marcelo, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share with us this framework. I personally had never heard of it, and I'm sure it's going to spark a lot of curiosity in my audience who, having delved further into it, will certainly find value and benefit to it. I myself would definitely be getting my hands on a copy to learn more about how we can implement this framework and help our organizations achieve their goals. So thank you so much, Marcelo. And maybe just before we let you go, any parting words for our audience, just words of wisdom, words of advice, particularly for those aligned with customer experience, because that's my biggest target audience.
I would say, if you're building anything in an organization, really understand your customer. Understand your customer better than they understand themselves, and provide value and solutions for what they're trying to do.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this particular podcast episode. Thank you so much, Marcelo. We look forward to connecting with you, and we look forward to learning more about the PRFAQ framework. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you.